For over 2 decades, we invited them into our homes. The Roloffs, a family that redefined what it meant to be a family on television. We watched them grow, we watched them love, we watched them fight, and we watched them build an empire on 100 acres of Oregon soil. Little People, Big World wasn't just a reality show. For many, it was a comforting constant, a television dynasty. And then, in the spring of 2024, after a season filled with tension, heartbreak, and emotional goodbyes, it just stopped. The train, as Amy Roloff put it, seemed to have finally pulled into the station. Zach and Tori Roloff, the last of the children on the show, packed their bags and declared they were done. Matt Roloff posted cryptic messages about new beginnings. The official word from TLC, silence. A quiet, unceremonious end to one of the longest-running reality shows in history. The official story, the one the fans have been led to believe, is that the show simply ran its course, that the family had outgrown the cameras, that it was a natural conclusion. But what if I told you the official story is a lie? What if I told you the end of Little People, Big World wasn't natural at all? What if it was engineered? What if the dynasty didn't just fade away, but was fractured from the inside by a secret civil war, a battle for power and money that has, until now, remained hidden in the shadows? We're not talking about the old drama between Matt and Amy. We're not even talking about the tragic farm feud between Matt and Zach. We're talking about a new, explosive bombshell. A demand so audacious, it allegedly pitted family members against family members, husband against wife, and son against stepfather. A demand from the most unlikely of sources, Chris Marek. Rumors, whispers from sources reportedly close to the production are beginning to paint a shocking new picture. A picture of stalled negotiations for a potential 2026 season. And at the center of it all, an alleged ultimatum from Chris Marek himself. A demand for a salary bigger than the Roloff children, a power play that may have been the final nail in the coffin for the show we all knew. This is the story of how a reality TV giant was quietly canceled. But more than that, this might just be the real reason why. Before we dive deep into the web of intrigue, the backroom deals, and what our sources are calling the Great Roloff Salary War, do me a huge favor. This is the kind of exclusive deep dive you will only get here. If you believe there's more to this story than meets the eye, prove it. Obliterate that like button until it turns blue, and most importantly, hit subscribe to LPBW Update and turn on all notifications. You are not going to want to miss a single second of this investigation as we uncover the truth piece by piece. To understand the conspiracy, we first have to understand the cover-up. The narrative presented to the public was one of quiet finality. Let's examine the evidence they wanted us to see. Exhibit A, Zach and Tori Roloff. Their emotional sign-off from the show felt genuine. They were fed up with the family drama, particularly the bitter fallout with Matt over the farm. Their exit felt like a logical endpoint. With no more Roloff children on the series, what was left? Exhibit B, Amy Roloff's own words. A poignant, if not slightly ambiguous metaphor. It suggests a winding down, a gentle conclusion. It prepares the audience for an ending without ever officially announcing one. It's the perfect PR move, soft, non-committal, and it avoids the negative headlines of an outright cancellation. Exhibit C, Matt Roloff's behavior. He shifted his focus entirely to social media, posting lengthy updates about the new house built with Karen, the future of the farm, and his life post-show. He was acting like a man who had already moved on. On the surface, it all adds up. A neat, tidy package. The kids left, the parents were moving on, the story was over. Case closed, right? Wrong. Because if you look closer, the natural end theory is full of holes. Huge, gaping holes. Firstly, the money. Little People, Big World was still a rating success for TLC. It was a flagship show. Networks don't just let profitable, long-running franchises fade away without a massive, heavily promoted farewell season. Think about it. We would have seen commercials for months, the final season, the end of an era, say goodbye to the Roloffs. TLC would have milked that finale for every last rating point, but we got nothing, just radio silence. That's not how television works. That's how something gets shut down unexpectedly. Secondly, the ambiguity. Why were the cast members so cagey? If the show was truly over by mutual agreement, why not just say it? Why the metaphors about trains? Why the cryptic posts? This smells less like a mutual agreement and more like a group of people bound by non-disclosure agreements or NDAs, unable to speak the full truth about a sudden, dramatic implosion. And thirdly, and this is the most important piece of the puzzle, the whispers of new negotiations. Sources have indicated that as recently as late 2023, TLC was, in fact, exploring a new iteration of the show. A show that would pivot away from the departed kids and focus on the two main couples, Matt and Karen, and Amy and Chris. This new version of LPBW was allegedly on the table. So, if a new show was being discussed, what killed it? What happened in those negotiation rooms that was so catastrophic it not only killed the new show, but erased any chance of a proper farewell to the old one? That, my friends, is where our story truly begins. And the name at the center of the firestorm is Chris Marek. To understand the alleged demand, you have to understand Chris Marek's evolution on the show. When he first appeared in 2016, he was an outsider, a successful real estate agent, a man of average height, and Amy Roloff's new boyfriend. He was a supporting character, a +1. He was soft-spoken, agreeable, and seemed content to stay on the sidelines, supporting Amy as she navigated her new life post-divorce. For years, that was his role. He was the calming presence, the guy who helped Amy find her voice and her independence. He won over the fans by being the steady, reliable partner Amy deserved. But as the years went on, something shifted. Chris was no longer just a supporting character. He became a central figure in Amy's world and therefore a central figure on the show. His wedding to Amy was a major multi-episode event for TLC. His opinions on the farm, his interactions with Matt, his role as a grandfather figure to the kids, they all became C-plots and B-plots. His screen time increased dramatically. In the post-divorce, post-farm sale landscape of LPBW, Chris wasn't just Amy's husband, he was one of the 4 main pillars of the show. And according to our unconfirmed insider reports, Chris knew it. He knew his value. Here's what we're hearing from sources with ties to the production. During the exploratory talks for a new season in 2026, a season that would focus heavily on the adult couples, the topic of salaries came up. And Chris Marek, the former outsider, allegedly made a stunning move. The theory goes that he and his representatives demanded a salary package that would elevate him to a top-tier star of the show. But it wasn't just about a raise. The demand was reportedly about status. He wanted a salary that was, at a minimum, equal to what the Roloff children, specifically Zach, had been earning. And some whispers suggest he may have even asked for more. Let's break down why this is so explosive. For 25 seasons, the show was called Little People, Big World. The entire premise was built around the Roloff family, their dwarfism, and their unique lives. The children, Zach, Jeremy, Molly, and Jacob, were the legacy. Their salaries, while never public, were a reflection of their status as original core cast members. They were, for lack of a better word, Roloff royalty. For Chris Marek, an average height man who married into the family less than a decade ago, to demand to be paid on par with or more than that legacy. In the world of the Roloffs, this would be seen as the ultimate power play. It's not just a negotiation tactic. It's a statement. It's a challenge to the entire family hierarchy. The message it would send is simple and brutal. The kids are the past. I am the future. The show needs me more than it needs them or their memory. Can you imagine how that would land with the rest of the family? This single alleged demand had the power to ignite a firestorm, and we have reason to believe it did. A demand like this doesn't happen in a vacuum. It creates shockwaves. Let's analyze the predicted fallout, person by person. This is the internal family war the rumors point to. Let's start with Zach and Tori. They had just made the painful decision to walk away from the show that had been Zach's entire life. Their primary motivation was the deep wound inflicted by Matt over the farm sale. They felt devalued, disrespected, and pushed out of their own family legacy. Now, imagine them getting a phone call. Imagine they hear that the man who married their mother, a man who has only been in their lives for a fraction of the show's run, is demanding to be paid more than Zach, the only remaining child on the series, was making. It would be a profound, soul-crushing slap in the face. It would validate every fear they had about their place in the family. First, they lose the farm, their birthright. Now, their financial and hierarchical value on the show they helped build is being challenged by their own stepfather. This isn't about jealousy over money, it's about respect. For Zach, it would feel like the final nail in the coffin of his relationship with the show and perhaps with the family structure itself. It's a betrayal on two fronts, from a production he gave his life to and from within his own mother's home. There would be no coming back from that. Any slim chance of Zach and Tori ever making a guest appearance, ever participating in a holiday special, this would likely evaporate it forever. The war for them would be over because they would simply refuse to fight. They'd wash their hands of the whole thing. Now, let's turn to the forgotten son, Jeremy Roloff, and his wife, Audrey. They famously left the show years ago, citing a desire to pursue their own projects and protect their family from what they saw as an increasingly toxic and unchristian environment. For years, some fans have criticized them for being judgmental or holier than thou. But this news, the Chris Marek salary demand, for Jeremy and Audrey, this would be the ultimate vindication. They walked away from the money and the fame because they saw the writing on the wall. They saw the family business becoming more business than family. A stepfather allegedly demanding to be paid more than the biological children is the absolute embodiment, everything they claim to be running from. You can almost hear them saying, "See, we told you so." This isn't just family anymore. It's a corporate entity where your value is determined by screen time and negotiating power, not by blood. Jeremy's decision to leave and build his own separate Roloff legacy looks, in hindsight, like a stroke of genius. He is the one Roloff son who is truly independent, who doesn't need Matt's farm or TLC's paycheck. The Chris Marek situation would prove to them and to their followers that they made the right choice. It would create a chasm, not of anger, but of distance. They are on their own arc, and this news would just be proof that the flood was real. This is where it gets truly fascinating. How would the patriarch, the king of the farm, Matt Roloff, react? Your first instinct might be outrage. How dare this man challenge the value of my children? But you have to remember who Matt Roloff is. He is a shrewd, unsentimental businessman. Matt would see this situation not through the eyes of a father, but through the eyes of a producer. Let's analyze his cold, hard calculation. On one hand, you have his son, Zach, who has publicly quit the show, who is openly feuding with him, and who represents the old version of LPBW, a version that is frankly falling apart. On the other hand, you have Chris Marek. Chris is reliable. He shows up. He's willing to film. He's part of a stable on-screen couple with Amy. He provides a crucial link to the normal-sized world, which has always been part of the show's appeal. From a purely logistical standpoint, for a future show focused on the adults, Chris is a more valuable asset than Zach. Is it possible that Matt, the businessman, would secretly agree with Chris's assessment of his own value? Is it possible Matt would see this as a necessary evil to keep the TLC train moving? He might be angry at the audacity, but he might also respect the hustle. This puts Matt in a terrible position. Does he defend the honor of the son he's fighting with? Or does he make a pragmatic business decision to support the man who could be key to his and Corinne's future on television? Any choice he makes creates more conflict. Siding with Chris would permanently alienate him from his kids. Siding with his kids against Chris would create a massive rift with Amy and potentially kill the new show anyway. Matt would be trapped. And finally, we come to the heart of the drama, the emotional epicenter, Amy Roloff. Imagine the torment. This woman spent years fighting for her own voice, her own independence from Matt. She finally found a partner in Chris who supported her, loved her, and gave her a new lease on life. He is her rock, her future. But her children, especially Zach, are her legacy, her blood. Her bond with them is something she has cherished and protected through all the years of turmoil with Matt. Now, her rock and her legacy are at war. The man she loves is, in essence, claiming to be more valuable than the son she bore. This is an impossible conflict. Who does she support? Does she stand by her husband? If she does, she risks being seen by her children as a traitor. She would be siding with the new money against the old blood. The accusation would be that she chose her new life over them. It could damage her relationship with her kids and grandkids. Does she stand with her children? If she tells Chris, "You are wrong to ask for this. You are disrespecting my son," she creates a massive fissure in her own marriage. She would be devaluing her husband, telling him he's less than her family's legacy. For a man like Chris, a proud and successful person in his own right, that could be a critical blow to their relationship. Every path is a losing one. There is no doubt that this alleged demand would have sparked the most intense, painful, and private arguments of Amy and Chris's marriage. The tension we saw on screen in the final season might not have just been about the farm. It could have been the early tremors of this massive earthquake happening behind closed doors. This isn't just a salary negotiation. This is a battle for the soul of the Roloff family. And Chris Marek, whether intentionally or not, may have lit the fuse. So the family is in chaos, but what about the network? Why would TLC even let it get to this point? Why wouldn't they just shut down Chris Marek's demand immediately and say, "No way, the Roloff kids are the stars"? To understand their position, you have to remove all emotion. Television networks are not families. They are corporations, and their only goal is to generate ratings and revenue. From TLC's perspective, the Little People, Big World brand, as it existed, was damaged goods. The core conflict that drove it for a decade, Matt and Amy's marriage, was over. The second generation story, the kids growing up and taking over, was also over. Zach was gone. Jeremy was gone. The farm succession plot, which was meant to be the next 5 years of television, had imploded in the most dramatic way possible. The old show, though, was dead. So, when they sat down at the negotiating table, they were looking for a new show, a phoenix to rise from the ashes. And what would that new show look like? It would be LPBW, The Golden Years, a show centered on two couples in their 50s and 60s navigating life, love, retirement, and grandparenthood. In that version of the show, is Chris Marek a supporting character? No, he is one of the four leads. His perspective is just as important as Amy's. His relationship with Matt is a key source of potential drama and comedy. In that context, his demand to be paid as a lead actor, actually makes a twisted kind of sense from a purely business standpoint. TLC would be in a bind. On one hand, acquiescing to his demand would mean dealing with the catastrophic family fallout, which could make filming impossible. On the other hand, denying him could mean Chris walks. And if Chris walks, does Amy walk with him? If Amy is out, the entire concept for the new show collapses. There's no show with just Matt and Karen. The network was likely caught in a checkmate position. The family was too fractured to continue the old show, and the financial demands and internal politics were too toxic to start a new one. What do you do when your multi-million-dollar asset has become this radioactive? You don't cancel it. You don't give it a farewell season. You just walk away. You let it die quietly, and you hope the fans just assume it was a natural death. It's the cleanest, quietest way to handle an unsolvable mess. Once you know the theory, you start to see the clues everywhere. Let's go back and look at the past few seasons through this new lens. Remember all those scenes where Chris, the real estate agent, would give his unsolicited but professional opinion on the value of the farm and Matt's building projects. At the time, we saw it as a fun dynamic, the two patriarchs talking shop. But what if it was more? What if it was Chris subtly establishing his expertise and his equal footing with Matt, the show's central figure? He wasn't just Amy's husband. He was a fellow businessman and equal at the table. Remember the subtle but persistent awkwardness between Chris and Zach in the later seasons? We chalked it up to the general family tension around the farm. But what if it was the beginning of this power struggle? What if Zach felt Chris was overstepping, not just as a stepfather, but as a presence on the show? What if he saw Chris cozying up to Matt in production and sensed his own position was being threatened? And let's re-examine the single most pivotal event. The failure of the farm deal with Zach. Matt's official reason was that Zach wasn't ready and they couldn't agree on a price. But what if there was another hidden factor? What if Matt, already seeing the writing on the wall, knew that the future of the show might lie with the adults, not the kids? What if selling the farm to Zach would have cemented the old version of the show, a version Matt was already planning to move on from? By denying Zach the farm, was Matt perhaps subconsciously clearing the deck for a new show, a show where Chris Marek would play a much larger role? It's a chilling thought that the heartbreak of the farm sale wasn't just a family dispute, but a strategic move in a much larger chess game for the future of the little people. Big world television franchise. The pieces all fit. The tension, the departure, the stalled negotiations, the sudden silence. It all points back to a single explosive event, a demand that the family and the network simply could not survive. So, was Little People, Big World quietly canceled because the family just grew apart? Or was that just the cover story for a much darker, more complicated truth? The evidence, when pieced together, paints a compelling and tragic picture. A picture of a family dynasty that survived divorce, internal strife, and public scrutiny for 2 decades, only to be allegedly brought down by a battle over money and status, sparked by its newest member. It suggests that Chris Marek, the man who came in as Amy's savior, may have inadvertently become the catalyst for the show's final implosion. Not out of malice, perhaps, but out of a business-like understanding of his own value in a shifting landscape. He saw himself as a key player in the show's future, and he demanded to be paid like one. But in doing so, he failed to understand one crucial thing. The Roloffs are not a normal company. They are a family where blood, history, and legacy mean everything. His demand, logical as it might have been in a Hollywood boardroom, was a declaration of war in the world of the Roloffs, a war that nobody could win. The show is gone. The family is fractured, perhaps beyond repair. And we, the viewers, are left with nothing but questions and the haunting possibility that the feel-good family show we loved was ultimately consumed by the very things it was never supposed to be about: fame, money, and power. The real big world turned out to be a much more ruthless place than we ever imagined. So, what do you guys think? Is this theory just wild speculation, or have we stumbled upon the uncomfortable truth that TLC and the Roloffs don't want you to know? Was Chris Marek a savvy negotiator who knew his worth, or was his alleged demand the ultimate act of disrespect that brought the whole house of cards crashing down? I want to know your explosive theories. Get down in the comments section right now and let me know. Was Matt the secret villain? Was this Amy's fault? Did TLC orchestrate the whole thing? Let's get the conversation started. Thank you for joining me on this incredibly deep dive. If you made it this far, you are a true detective of the LPBW world. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with another fan who needs to know the real story. We'll be tracking this story and any new developments, so stick with LPBW Update, your home for the stories behind the story. We'll see you in the next video.